Let me tell you the story of how I brought the glory of Rome to a server of barbarians. Once again, it started with me waking up on the beach. It was time for another Smart Guy event, but this one was a little different. 500 players all on one server split between 7 teams on a map of the Earth. No flying tames, no advanced weaponry, and no respawns. Once you're dead, you're out. Designated as the leader of the European team, I, being as autistic as I always am, decided to model us after the Romans. But seeing as we had all spawned in just a couple of minutes ago, we certainly were no legion just yet. We started by making a small starter base near Belgium. For the first 4 hours there was a grace period, so we didn't have to worry about fighting enemies just yet. Here we all gathered together, put together some gear, and readied ourselves. Once we had everything we needed, we headed inland to Central Europe to find our base spot. Now unfortunately, as much as I would have loved to have built on Rome itself, take a look at what Italy looks like. Yeah, not exactly a spot that's fit for 70 people, is it? So instead, in Central Europe, we found this very defensible platform. Accessible only through this weird tunnel ramp, this was the perfect place to base my empire from. And so, we set up our roots here. So up near the lake, we set up our main base. So with this done, I led a group out to tame everything we could on our continent. Aloes, Rexes, dire bears. War was coming, and we could use everything we could get. However, in this way we were severely handicapped. Europe was by far the smallest continent, and we had the worst selection of dinos. For the most part, it was low-level Aloes and Rexes all around. However, in the north of the continent, we found Eden bears, which were a type of bear that was exclusive to this map that was basically just dire bears with an extra bit of trenbolone. Now, while they weren't suitable to be the building block of an army, they would serve as a perfect tame for me. It was fast enough to get me around the battlefield quickly while not being big enough to draw attention, and still being strong enough to help at fights. Basically everything a commander needs. So, taming a high-level one, she was then named Grasa, and would serve as my steed forevermore. Returning to base, we had about an hour left until the grace period was over. So as we set to further upgrading our base, I ensured everybody had the correct uniform on. You see, in preparation for this event, my boy Jimmy had made a Roman armors mod, and so now we could truly look like a legion. I, as the Emperor of the Romans, was equipped with my own unique set of armor inspired by this statue of Augustus. I mean, come on, look at us, dude, we're basically twins. Across its entire surface were etched images of great victories that I'd had. For example, this relief celebrates my victory over Alcoholic Hitmen, which you may have seen in the Becoming a Tyrant video. The rest are for you to decipher as you may. God only knows how I managed to get this armor to fit my unique proportions. Next, I equipped the bulk of my men in Lorica Segmentata, one of the more protective and, more importantly, iconic armors of ancient Rome. And then a small, elite veteran subsection of my army, known as the Goopers, who I'd played and won in previous events with, was equipped with a centurion's uniform, with a horsehair crest and a harness of medals earned in previous victories. Each of these guys was worth a half dozen fresh recruits, and so with their unique and distinguishable uniforms, in the heat of battle, the newer members of the Legion could look upon them and follow their lead. Serving as basically officers in my Legion, I knew I could trust each and every one of these guys, as well as knowing their particular skills and weaknesses. However, since the bulk of my team was made up by people I'd never played with before, the success or defeat of our team would be determined entirely by my ability to inspire and lead them. By the time I had outfitted everyone properly, the 4 hours was up and the grace period was over. Looking at our present situation, I could see that we were good in terms of gear and base defenses. However, we severely lacked in tames. Other teams would not have this problem. With the borders just dropped, a desperate gamble formed in my mind. The relatively nearby island of Greenland was rich in powerful tames. If we could make our way there, we could solve this whole problem. However, Greenland is far from safe, and these new recruits under my command are completely untested. Taking them along would be too risky, so I assembled a small team of Goopers, with a few left behind to watch over the men as they continued working on the base. So me and my small force of bodyguards headed out to Greenland.
Let's go, bro. Let's go. Alright.
Upon making landfall in Greenland, we first spread out to find out if there was any enemies here. After all, this island had been North America's.
Right here.
Okay, we're coming, help. The North Americans had a small outpost here, but we outnumbered them greatly, so we put them to the sword. The few of them that had been stationed here were dead. We could now head through the island taming everything that we pleased.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
One of my boys had managed to find and trap a giga, so we all closed in to shoot it before it broke out of its trap.
Yeah, guys, keep your distance. It could break out.
We all fired as fast as we could, but the great beast would not be felled easily. It broke out of its trap. This thing could easily tear any of us apart. But luckily, one of my brave bastards on a terror bird had caught its attention, and so he ran around keeping it distracted as we shot more trank arrows into it.
I could tell you, dude. Chat.
Who else has narcotics on him?
It's down!
It's down! It's down!
After knocking out the great beast, it was then tamed. And what a tame it would be. With this 1 giga, we no longer had a tame deficit. One of these things was worth maybe 10 Rexes. Which makes it all the more astounding that for some reason North America decided to not tame it. Because remember, we're 5 hours into the event, we had to wait that long to go on their land. So what, was this just a case of insane procrastination, or did they just not think it was worth the effort? Now, while perhaps it would have very well suited my ego for me to ride the giga, I instead would stay on Krasa. There were Goopers in the Legion who had much more experience riding a beast like this than I did. And to ruin its effectiveness by having a fucking idiot like me ride it, I don't think that's exactly a good idea. At any rate, while we were here, we also tamed a couple mammoths and woolly rhinos. So we loaded up on the rafts and made the return journey home. And all these rafts sailing on the sea is like some Odyssey type shit. And peep the poor giga raft, dude. Once I got back to the base, I'd seen that there'd been good productivity on the defenses. But aesthetically, it was looking a little rough, so I went and fixed that up. I found a city of brick and left it a city of marble. As the cherry on top, I planted a couple Legion standards. So now our base had truly been Rome maxed. There was only really one thing left to be done to make us more Roman: start a war. And thus I mobilized the legions. We would leave behind only a token force to defend the base while we were gone. I had previously sent out scouts that reported to me that there was a base in the Levant. Seeing as they were the closest to us, we would attack them first. With everyone in position, we set off. All the creatures we had ran at different speeds. However, I didn't want people going off on their own and getting picked off. I made sure that everybody stayed together. Before long, the enemies were within view.
I see a guy down there, dude. He's like afraid for his life.
We had somehow taken them by complete surprise. They were done for.
Go!
Everyone pour in!
No. There's a guy right here, on the pig. Giga, keep chomping, you're right on.
As the Giga and Rexes tore apart the base, those of us on faster teams went ahead to catch anyone running away.
They're running through this train track.
I thought he's in the water. He's right here,
He's done.
No, he's not dead yet, he's not dead yet.
Doors.
He's dead, I got him.
We got
He's
Giga.
dead.
I can't call this a battle. I think even calling it a massacre is a little too charitable. We kind of just blitzkrieged them and they all died, which makes sense because there was only about 10 people here in total. These guys were some kind of weird splinter faction off from the main Asian tribe, which clearly breaking off from the bigger group didn't work so well for them. Now, since we were in the neighborhood, so to speak, I decided we might as well go check out the Great Pyramid. Nah.
Oh, it's a ramp. Yeah, you can just run up. It's just a ramp. Oh, dude, you can hide in the top, bro.
When Caesar visited Egypt, he is said to have wept at the tomb of Alexander. When Albertus visited Egypt, he's said to have run up the pyramids and hidden at the top because he thought it'd be kind of funny. Looking south from the top of the pyramids, we could see another base. Since we hadn't lost anyone in an attack on the Levant, we decided we might as well go for them too. Okay.
An enemy.
Okay.
I got him! He's dead!
Somehow, the Africa tribe had been even easier than those at the Levant. I mean, these guys didn't even have an outside wall. We just showed up and killed them and that was like it. But I guess having no wall does have its advantages because a lot of them were able to get away. And thus concluded the Battle of North Africa. Which, to even call it a battle is pretty rough, seeing as we didn't lose anything. However, this was huge for us. Outside of, just killing the enemy teams, this also allowed some of the newer members of the Legion to get experience. But with how much resistance the enemies managed to put up, you can just think of it as an advanced marching drill. Still at full strength, and still with an unquenchable appetite for war, as all good Romans are, we continued looking for more enemies. At the bottom of the Himalayas, we found a few outlying structures and members of the Asian tribe. And that's when it dawned on me. We would have to fucking attack up Mount Everest. So we got into a close formation and pushed up.
Oh, they got a rock column?
Get up, guys. We have to keep pushing up.
About halfway up the mountain, we came across their main defensive wall. Opening fire through one of their open gates, I was able to see that they had a shit ton of Rexes. But even worse than that, they had 2 Gigas to our 1. The balance of power was completely against us. Pushing them would be a terrible idea. We would need to take things slow and steady and break the enemy down piece by piece. I first started by having the Giga Rider break a hole into the wall that we could shoot through.
Right here.
Get his feet.
Tag the guy with the test piece. I tagged him. Up top, the guy's sniping.
By opening fire with everything we had, we were able to injure both the Gigas, although one more severely than the other. In reaction to this, they put some guys on a nearby ledge to snipe down at us. However, I directed a few of our best marksmen to return fire.
They're throwing frags, guys. Be
Hanging him, we
careful.
see him.
Shmurda, can you shoot this guy's head off?
here.
Cheers.
He shot me, bro.
And somehow, despite the enemy having an insane height advantage, my guys were able to silence them. We'd sniped one of the Giga Riders, leaving his tame exposed to our fire. Before somebody was able to replace the now dead rider, we'd brought the Giga to near death. My plan was working and the battle was shifting in our favor. All we had to do now was deal with the other Giga. A horrific blunder by the enemy meant that their UD fell down from the ledge. This was one of the key dinos keeping their defense alive. They attempted to surge out to save it, but using our Giga we held them back as everybody else devoured it. The defenders were just making mistake after mistake. The only thing standing between us and total victory now was that Giga, and so we deployed our riskiest strategy. A cart-mounted ballista being towed by a Gallimimus. This thing was fast and could do a shit ton of damage, but one bite from the Giga would bring it down. Opening fire, this thing began destroying the Giga. With this, the tide of the battle had truly shifted in our favor. Both of their Gigas were now near death, and seeing this, they fled the field of battle. This is a shameful display.
Okay, alright, push in, guys. Don't let them push back.
But at this point, the defensive nature of their base worked against them. They had no way to flee except up the mountain. Apparently lacking the leadership to reform, everybody just ran for their fucking lives. They closed a bunch of gates behind them to slow us down, and then, as soon as they had the opportunity, they literally threw themselves off the mountain to survive. Needless to say, not many of them would make it. And so, we were able to reach the very tippy top of Everest completely uncontested. Another total victory for the Empire. And what an embarrassing loss it was for the Asians. They had an insanely defensive position, defender's advantage, and 2 Gigas. On top of that, we would later learn that these guys had been reinforced by those who survived from the African tribe. So it's not even like our fucking attack was some big surprise to them either. And with all of that, they hadn't killed a single guy. There must have been some kind of leadership issue in this tribe, because they offered very little resistance to every plan we had. They kind of just sat there and took it. Those lucky few who survived would seek out refuge with every other team on the server, and they would bring news of what had happened here. Good, let them hear of our great victory here. With the enemy completely routed, we were free to just loot whatever we wanted. It had been such a hasty retreat they'd barely packed anything at all. After having loaded up with all the loot, I received news from those left at base that they were under attack by the South American team. They'd blown into our courtyard and were eating some of the tames left in there. So everybody that was out kicked it up a gear and started heading home. However, a short distance away from the base, I made sure we all regrouped. I didn't want people going in one by one. With everyone now together, we attacked.
Behind
John, we need you over
everyone
here.
right now.
They got rhinos.
The enemy had a couple woolly rhinos. These things were a direct counter to our Giga, and so like we were playing fucking college football and the Giga's the quarterback, we made sure none of these rhinos could get to him. And by countering the only thing they had that could kill our Giga, we were able to decimate them.
Dude, mog those crocs. That croc is low. Focus that croc. He just hopped off the croc.
With the rhinos kept at a distance, the Giga was able to outmatch everything else. And so after taking some casualties, the South Americans were forced to flee. The Battle of Rome was another victory to add to our pile. In exchange for some of our weakest tames and a few of our members, we'd managed to completely hamstring the South American team and kill most of their best tames. The success of this battle came from the fact that the South Americans had breached a small hole in the north side and then all ran into our courtyard. This meant that when we approached from the southern side, the fucking gates in the way stopped them from seeing us, and somehow we were able to surprise them when they were the ones attacking us. And then the fact that they blew only a small hole meant that they had trouble getting out, so we were able to just pick them off as one unified group. The base was now safe, so we jumped at the opportunity to offload the loot we got, repair our gear, and make more. We had managed to take over complete control of Africa and Asia, with the few survivors of those teams fleeing to other continents. Dude, if you showed this map to any emperor except fucking Hadrian, they would nut instantly. But But just like when it came to food, for Albertus, this was never enough. With South America having basically killed themselves on our walls, it only made sense to go to North America next. So we once again took this opportunity to prepare ourselves, again leaving a small token force to defend, and then heading out. Ranging deep into the continent, we finally came across a North American base. And as soon as I laid my eyes on it, I knew that this would be our most difficult fight yet. Their whole base was built on this giant platform, with a formidable set of outer walls and some decent dinos inside. Even then, that would be a cakewalk compared to the actual base. Built up on a plateau, the only way to get up there was through a staircase that had been built intentionally out of weak materials so that as soon as they were under attack, they could just destroy it. On the actual plateau itself, they had a shit ton of good tames, and behind them in the giant fucking castle, a bunch of reserves. Not only of tames, but of extra materials. They had everything they needed to endure a siege. We certainly had our work cut out for us, but then I realized that the Romans had done this before. 72 AD, the siege of Masada. Almost exactly a repeat of what we're facing here. From this, I knew that I could turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. If they began to panic, they'd have nowhere to run up there, so I got to work.
Oh, we can just walk in. We can just walk in. Go, go, go.
Get those dinosaurs and shit, quick.
You're gonna get him stuck. Yeah.
Get stuck. You fucking him up.
Quickly taking over control of the lower section of the base, as expected, the staircase was destroyed. So next, the majority of the team was engaged in a sniper fight with the enemy. As the majority of the North American team was distracted with this, a single infiltrator was sent around the base to climb up the wall and hit them from behind.
One of them's got a micro-raptor.
They might have knocked him.
Killed one up here.
With the defenders thrown into chaos, I knew now was the time to attack. However, looking around, I could see that some of my legionnaires were faltering. Attacking such a base seemed like suicide. I needed to inspire them. Leaving behind Krasa, I requisitioned a Rex off one of our legionnaires and joined the assault. We'd managed to find this weird path up to the base. However, it was such a steep path that only the few Rexes and the 1 Giga we had were able to go up it. And with basically every tame the enemy had waiting up there for us, it seemed hopeless. However, we came up with a plan. The Giga would march up the path and bite the enemies until it was low health. It would then retreat and be healed by force feeding it meat until it was ready to go again. And while this was happening, the few Rexes that we had would hold this path open and continue pressing the enemy. This way, by coordinating, it meant that we were able to overcome the fact that the enemy had us severely outmanned.
I think I'm winning.
We are. Everyone down here is just unloading. Everyone down here is unloading.
John, I'm ready to take your place if you want to back up.
Hello, he doesn't need a sniper, right? He has someone.
Gas grenade.
Albert, you need me to let
Working together like this, we were like a well-oiled machine. Eventually, we were able to wear down the enemies, and the balance of power shifted in our favor. Eventually, at one point when the Giga was healing, we sensed a break in the enemy lines, so we pushed in.
John, we're pushing up. John, we're pushing up heavy, dude.
Aloes, watch our back.
Right now, dude, we're so deep. This isn't a fight that us Rexes could win alone, but the Giga was still healing. All we had to do was secure this foothold.
Every Rex up here.
I'm getting the shit shot out of me. Get this guy off the roof. With the Giga coming up, we had broken the enemy's resolve. They began to flee. However, they had nowhere to run.
There's a guy on the ground. Guy on the ground. Start hitting.
I see him.
Jump out the bay.
Over here.
I can go through.
There's a guy right here, John.
Slaughtering basically the entirety of the North American team, only a few managed to get away by destroying structures and hurtling themselves off the cliff. This is the second enemy that would rather throw themselves off a cliff than face my legions. This victory had been significantly more costly than the other ones. We'd actually lost some people. But considering that they had essentially like a god base spot, we still somehow managed to get them, it was good enough on its own. Packing up all their loot, as we were returning home, we'd received word that those at base had been attacked. The Australian team used a large group of Thylos, which have the ability to climb, to simply go over our defenses and attack those inside. However, of those left at base, luckily 2 of them were Goopers, so they were able to initiate a fighting retreat and fall back into our main base. Now luckily, and I don't know what they were thinking, the attackers hadn't brought any grenades. That's right, they went to go raid someone without the ability to break any of their structures. This meant that they were able to inflict very few losses in terms of players and loot. However, all the teams we had stored outside were basically fucked. And then they had torn down the Legion standards. Now, despite managing to kill a couple of them while suffering relatively few losses, In no way could this be considered a victory. By the time the bulk of the Legion returned to base, the Australians were long gone. However, in this action, the Australians had done something incredibly foolish. They'd revealed their hand. You see, by this attack, they had basically informed us that they were in the possession of multiple very high-level Thylos, and these were possibly amongst the strongest creatures in the whole event. They had insane strength, health, and maneuverability, but worst of all, their main attack inflicted a bleed, and this bleed is one of the very few attacks in the game that does percentage-based damage, meaning every time you bite something, you're taking off 5% of its health. A decent rider on a good Thylo could single-handedly kill our Giga with this. Could you imagine being the Giga and this little cat the size of your foot bites your ankle and you start profusely fucking bleeding? And they had, probably about 10 of these bad boys just sitting around waiting to bleed everything we had to death. Content as they were to gloat of their victory about us, I began making a plan. I'd received word that the South American team had simply disbanded, with basically all of their members joining everybody else they could. This left only Antarctica and Australia as the last two teams in our way. All we needed was one last great offensive, and the event would be ours. So here was the plan. First, we would go to Greenland to tame a bunch of mammoths and rhinos, specifically these two because they act as a counter to Thylos. You see, rhinos are fast and strong but not maneuverable, so Thylos would be able to outrun them. However, that's not the point. The rhinos are going to herd the enemies towards the mammoth, who is obviously much slower. But if we can push Thylos towards him, they have the ability to rip players off the mounts using their trunk. This would leave the player in the tusk of a 20-foot tall mammoth, which is to say dead, and Thylos without a rider to control them are easy pickings. However, if these two groups of people failed to work together, the Thylos would have a field day with us. But by this point, this team had been through so much and had become so battle-hardened that we were just one big, well-oiled machine. The Legionnaires knew that they could rely to the men on their left and right, which is not something every other team could say. And so packing up literally everything we owned, we would either return to this base in glory, or not at all. So for the final time, we gathered outside base and headed out to Greenland.
Load up, boys, load up.
Arriving to Greenland, we found the mammoths and rhinos we'd been looking for. We also found Daeodons. These have the ability to create an AoE healing circle, so they're going to be useful. Reboarding on our rafts, we first began by sailing down to South America. At their abandoned base, we found a few ragged worshippers left at the old temple, so they were put down. At this point, a couple members from the Australian team on Thylos began skirmishing with us. However, as soon as we would charge them in force, they would flee. Actually, like fucking lore-accurate skirmisher gameplay did. I knew the worst thing we could do is pursue them. They just keep running until we eventually broke off into little groups which would be easy to pick off. So instead, we just stayed in a close formation to make sure nobody would get picked off. The Thylos, in response, continued to rake us with gunfire, hoping to bait us out into charging them. Instead, we kept our composure, reboarded on the rafts, and left. Fighting them here was a pointless endeavor. They'd just run away until the situation favored them. So we set sail for Australia. Let's see them try that again when we're pillaging their home. Landing on the narrow shores of Australia, we knew that everything hung in the balance here. We were 16 hours in the event, with a whole bunch of dead enemies, and plenty of dead friendlies too. Just one more victory. That's all they needed from me. By the ringing of the bell, we could tell we had been spotted. Under the fire of their watchtowers, we pushed up to their base. We could now see that their base was this sprawling castle complex with multiple separate compartments. It was very well defended with multiple parapets and turrets dotted around. We were the first invading army to reach the shore, so they were still well stocked on players and tames. Not to mention that very powerful collection of Thylos they had. Worst of all, they had a Carcharodon. If used properly, this is much stronger than a Giga. They had more or less every advantage over us. The only thing we had was our better coordination, so we need to use that. The Australians first began by sending out their Thylo skirmishers, the same who had harassed us at South America. However, we stuck to our plan and began herding them around towards our mammoths.
Picked him, nice!
We're coming! Ripped off their Thylos by our mammoths. These guys then got ganked and killed in the trunk of our mammoths. These Thylos could have been very effective if used in a group, but they had gone out by themselves. So as the Giga and Rexes began the assault on the main base, those of us on smaller and faster tames focused on keeping the Thylos at bay. 3,
Three Thylos right here. We managed to prevent these Thylos from attacking us in the rear. However, up front, the Giga was having a hard time.
They're sniping me on the Giga right now.
The Australians simply had too many watchtowers and ballista turrets set up. With their base built on a plateau, we had very few opportunities to fire back. However, looking around, I saw a section of their base that had poor land claim. I could do something with this. Building up to one of the otherwise inaccessible plateaus, we began by pushing all enemies off this plateau.
I picked him, by a little.
He's dead.
This position now allowed us to fire into anywhere in their base. So I got a few of my boys to come up here and give the Australians a taste of their own medicine. Hit him with 3. To help maximize the effectiveness of my little sniper team, I took on the role of a spotter. There's a guy next to the ballista, under the railings. Our little sniper team was working miracles on the enemy. The battle was shifting in our favor. Sensing this, the enemy began a counterattack.
Over there.
John, we need you over here. Yeah, we got a Thyla in our ranks.
Bump fuck him.
Get him.
He's stuck.
He's almost dead, John.
No.
John, we need you up here. Medic! Yeah. We managed to repulse this counterattack and inflict good casualties on the enemy. However, this came at a heavy price. Our Giga was very close to death. If our Giga were to die, their Carcharodon would be able to easily steamroll everything else we had. So we decided to fall back towards the beach and take a breather. We need to spend some time away from the enemy, heal up the Giga, and then we can go back to the base. However, the enemy sensed our weakness. Everybody they had left mounted up a Thylo and began suicidally throwing themselves at our Giga. Like some sort of a kamikaze, it didn't matter if they died in the process. If they could bite it a couple times, their death would be worth it. I ordered everybody to form a screen around the Giga. We had to intercept them before they could reach him. If our Giga died, the enemy's Carcharodon would be able to simply roll over the rest of us. As we did this, the Daeodon would focus on healing him as much as possible.
Another Thyla!
Mammoths, grab the Thylas.
You got him.
Over here.
Killed the guy.
Do any good heals?
Nice. Jimmy got another guy.
More Thylos coming.
Go.
He's right here. I'm like blocking him. Get him. Nice. Pineapple, you got him. We were just barely managing to keep the Giga alive. Every time we managed to heal its health by just a little bit, another Thylo would come in, bite it, reset all the progress we'd done, and then die. They kept sending wave after wave of Thylos, 2 or 3 at a time. We ended up killing so many, we thought the whole Australia team was dead. And then we noticed that some of these guys were from the Antarctic team. But that doesn't make any sense. The kind of attacks they're doing wouldn't kill our team outright. It's the kind of attack you would do to soften someone up before your main force makes contact. And right then I realized the Antarctic team was coming. Based on the fact that their vanguard was already skirmishing with us, I estimated that we had maybe 3 or 4 minutes before the main force was upon us. We needed to heal the Giga as much as we could, as well as every other creature we had. But the Antarctic team made sure this wasn't easy for us. They continued to skirmish with us, preventing our health from regenning. Guys, heal up as long as we can, because these guys are going to be fucking fresh. We need all the HP we can get.
Holy shit.
I think they're coming. They're pushing.
Get ready. This is it, guys. Weakened as we were, we had to stand strong, or everything we'd done up to now would be for naught. Open fire on that Giga. Do as much damage as you can to it right now.
No,
No fucking way, bro.
Give it hell.
He's trying to push through the line. Fuck. There's a Thyla on John. I'm trying to body block.
Kill this fucking guy that I picked.
Get
Giga's dead. The enemy's Giga had fallen, but the fight wasn't over just yet. Most of the Antarctic team still remained. They still had a few Thylos left, and they were running in our midst.
Yeah, the Giga's gonna die, dude.
Walk in the water.
Fuck! The Giga, who had soldiered on so well throughout the whole event, had succumbed to the bleeding. We had just lost our greatest tame, and would now have to finish off the rest of the Antarctic team. Having suffered incredibly great losses, we were finally beginning to put down the Antarctic team when I heard the worst thing possible.
Guys!
Shit, bro.
Arch over there, I think.
Okay, we need to wrap up this fight quickly. The Australians who remained had mounted up on their Carcharodon. Now without our Giga, we were fucked.
Oh, it's boosted, it's boosted, it's boosted!
Fuck.
Oh my god.
I'm Mammoth Fear Warrior.
Get behind it, get behind it.
Holy fuck, it deals so much damage.
Shoot it, everyone. Everyone, focus everything you have on it. He's just doing circles.
Get this bitch!
He's gonna... Come on, come on, come on. We almost got him, we almost got him.
Die. Holy fuck.
Kill the thing, kill the thing, kill the thing. Every round, boys. It's dead, it's dead. Get the fuck out of here. At great cost to the Legion, somehow we had managed to kill the Carcharodon. All we had to do now was mop up the few Antarctic and Australian members remaining. There's a Thylo, enemy. Limping across the battlefield, those of us who remained breathed a sigh of relief. On this field right here, 2 enemy teams had been broken by the Legion. We'd lost a lot of tames and players, including that ever-important Giga. But somehow, through all it, Krasa had survived. As we were resting and healing our wounds, we received word that we were not yet done. Not everyone on the Australian team had joined this attack against us. There were still 15 of them remaining, making them roughly equal to us. But we were still incredibly wounded and had lost our best tames, and we received word that they were coming for us at this very moment. Another fight on this field would be hopeless. Instead, we retreated up a nearby hill and began setting up a defensive position. Weaker than ever before, we faced one final test. To prevent my men from fleeing, I planted the Legion standard. We would sooner die than give this up to the enemy. Now, we would have either death or glory. Hit him up, light him up with everything, get him as weak as you can. With the enemy advancing on us from the north, we were given an opportunity to soften them up before they reached us.
Oh, we're so good.
Seeing the enemy horde approaching and their very powerful tames, my men were wavering. Hit anything you can see. As the majority of their force approached our front, they sent 3 mammoths on a small path around our rear to flank us. This path was so small that only a single mammoth could go down at a time, so our best mammoth rider was sent to defend it.
Clap him! We picked him!
Nice, nice, nice. Good pick, good pick, good pick. Thylo, in our midst.
This is the flash.
Nice!
Another mammoth!
Bro, I'm like,
You got him, you got him.
With their flanking attack failing, the main force attacked. Everyone at the front, right the fuck now.
I need you to let me go.
Get that Rex, get
With the enemy's main force engaging, there was no more time for strategy or plans, just a brutal fight for survival. Nice, 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 nice. He picked his own buddy, he picked his own buddy. Frags, frags, frags.
I got him, bro!
You got him, Robert, you got him. He's dead. Good kill, Robert.
Mammoth incoming, mammoth incoming.
I'm hitting the guy. Got him, Robert. He's dead. The guy in the UD has no chest piece. Run him down, boys. No survivors. And with that, we were finally, truly done. We had killed somewhere in the ballpark of 100 enemies, losing only 15 in the process. What's more, is we hadn't lost any Goopers. Everyone who died up to this point had been a new recruit. And so with everyone else literally wiped off the map, I had brought the glory of Rome to all 4 corners of this earth, in the most Roman way possible, through war. I make a desert, and then I call it peace. But of course, with any great victory, there comes a great deal of salt. We had, pretty run-of-the-mill excuses. This guy who apparently thought we were just sitting in base the whole event, and this other guy who had a giant conspiracy theory that we had fabricated snipers, which of course we didn't, because you can't craft them, like there's no way to fucking get them. And then this guy had a massive spurg fit about the fact that we have now won 2 events in a row. His argument is that the Goopers are like some unstoppable force that can never be beaten, and as much as I wish that was true, every single team we faced easily had the opportunity to best us. So first looking at the Africa tribe, there's really only one thing I can say.
everything went wrong for them. I don't know exactly what caused them to have almost no progress done on their base by the time we attacked, but whatever that was, don't do that. And as for the Asian team, they made the mistake of setting up 2 separate base spots so they were both easier to pick off. On the Everest base spot, however, I don't understand why they decided to build their wall here on basically the widest point in the mountain pass. Just 50 feet to the left, there's a mountain pass that is significantly easier to defend. And on top of that, when the actual attack came, they were far too passive. They kind of just sat there and took it, and we were able to pick them apart piece by piece. And on top of that, they just failed to use the fact that they had 2 gigas. As soon as the raid started, all they had to do was just hop on those 2, push out, and we'd all be dead. They were the only team on the entire server that had 2 gigas, and they just didn't use them at all. As for South America, they made the mistake of seemingly only attacking our base with half their team, as well as attacking very far inland using crocodiles, which are obviously much more suited to be near the water. And then also just the fact that they got ambushed when they were attacking us, they really should have watched their back a little bit more. As for North America, they made a lot of mistakes. The first was not using Greenland at all. Greenland was probably the best place on the entire server to get actually good tames, and they had 4 hours of exclusive access to it, but they had nothing to show for it. North America was one of the few teams that straight up didn't have a giga despite having a guaranteed spawn on their land. However, even if they couldn't tame one, they should have at least contested us as we were taming ours. I mean, it's literally laying on the floor unconscious. They could have just pushed it, eaten it, and that would have been that. As for the attack on their base, there was no reason that they should have lost that defense. They had the best base spot of any team on the server. Specifically, that little path we used. They had basically no defenses on that section of the base. So this means either A, they knew about it and for whatever reason chose to not reinforce it, which is pretty simple why that's a bad idea, or B, they simply had no idea it was there, which somehow is even worse because we've been at your base for 5 minutes and we know it better than you. And then as we were making the ascent up the path, they just didn't use their resources particularly well. When we broke into their base, we found a large reserve of tames that could have easily helped hold the pass. As for Australia, they'd really played their cards too early. The attack they'd done with their Thylos had done almost no damage to us and just revealed that they had these incredibly powerful tames that we were able to later prepare for. Speaking of the Thylos, when we attacked them, they just used them kind of on their own. They're best used in conjunction with other tames, not by themselves. As well as the plateau that I'd taken control of near their base. I mean, they literally had a bridge from their base to that plateau. They should have pushed us off. And then the use of the Carcharodon was not that great. They waited until it was basically the last thing it had left before using it. Imagine if during the time that they'd been hitting us with those Thylo waves, if then it had come out. It would have just sweeped us. Antarctica meanwhile was pretty obvious. They shouldn't have attacked in 2 separate groups. But also on top of that, they had pretty suboptimal mammoth usage, which is a crazy statement, but yeah, they almost never picked us with their trunks. And then also when the Giga attacked, he kind of did it by himself and all of his boys were just hanging back. All it would have taken is one team, any team on this list, to not do one thing and this whole event would have been lost. And what you'll notice about most of these is that they all either have something to do with coordination or discipline. And that's exactly why ancient Rome was able to conquer the Mediterranean. The Celts were bigger and stronger, the Carthaginians richer, the Greeks more established. But through it all, the Romans were more disciplined. So they're the ones who came out on top. That's right, you thought this was an ARC video, didn't you? No, you got trolled. This was just a very circuitous history lesson that you got tricked into watching. So yeah, you learn something new every day, I guess. I don't know. Thank you to Jimmy for making the Roman Armors mod. If you guys are also interested in playing dress up as a Roman soldier, just search for Rome in the ARC mod page. For $5, you get about 30 skins. We got Republic era stuff, Imperial era stuff, even a couple Hellenic armor pieces, a lot of gladiator shit, a toga, and of course who could forget the garb of Imperator Albertus. I helped Jimmy with making sure all this stuff was more or less historically accurate with a few liberties taken, so this gets a Rome Autist seal of approval. And then of course thank you to Smart Guy and all 500 players in the event. It was a pretty fun event, but maybe less people next time. This one was a little too laggy. And finally, thank you to my YouTube members. Without you guys, I'd be on the side of the road dead. I mean, not really, but all the same, I appreciate you guys. Special thanks to Anchor Wing, Swintiki96, Brady Jarvis, Platypus Advisor, and Heath Dion at the Big Fella tier, as well as Pebble Penguin 252, Mayan Ops, Stephen LeBaron, and David F at the Albertus Lover tier. Big ups, boys.